Welcome to the show, Fuck Loneliness. I'm your host, Sharon Pieczenik. And in each episode, I invite a guest on and we discuss the nature of loneliness. Let's hop right into it. Hi, Natalia Reagan. Thank you so much for coming to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Absolutely. So you are a primatologist.
I am.
Love if you gave a little short bio about what it is you do and what you study.
Well, specifically, I actually went into primate conservation. My big thought was, I always wanted to study behavior, but my concern was you can't study primates that are extinct. So it was like, let's get on the ground and try to basically conserve a species of primate. And I wanted my first love. I used to have recurring King Kong nightmares as a child. And once I was able to lucid dream and shrink him down to the size of an orangutan, I fell in love with gorillas, and that's what I wanted to study. But the area I wanted to work in at the time of graduation was too dangerous at that point. And so I pivoted and I studied spider monkeys. So I worked doing conservation and doing a survey. Basically, when the United States was doing the 2010 census, I was doing the 2010 census of the Azuero spider monkey in rural Panama. So just looking at their distribution in different forest fragments.
That is so exciting. And as you know, this show is about loneliness.
Yes.
And so I have talked a lot with people about why I'm lonely, and people ask me about that. And I often go to say, well, I'm a total primate. I'm like a monkey, you know, we are humans, we're monkeys. I need groups. I need to be touched. I want to touch someone else. And I wanted to talk to you about that. I mean, primates, am I correct? Do they live in community?
Yes.
What do primates need to not be lonely?
Well, you're absolutely right. You know, humans first and foremost are primates, and primates are very social. A lot of reptiles are not as social as mammals. And in the mammal world, primates are up there when it comes to being excessively social. We love to be around one another. And there's different social groups and different species of non-human primate. So it's not always, one size fits all. Same with humans. We know that, across the world, there are different ways of reproductive strategies and ways of making family. Some people are, one husband, multiple wives. Maybe in a certain area, it's monogamy runs the show, or in some areas it's one female with multiple husbands. So there's different ways we can, cut the social systems of humans. Same with non-human primates. But one thing that is universal is this need to be around one another. Even those introverts out there that swear up and down, oh my God, now I don't have to cancel plans, are like, right. Crap, I wish I had plans to cancel. And you're not alone, even though you are alone. But so one of the reasons being is if you think of all the activities that people are missing, like for instance, going to get your hair done or your nails done, or my mom wants to go to the post office so bad. I'm like, Mom, there's nothing you need to mail me that bag that you're going to risk getting COVID. Please stay home. But all these like little sort of affiliative behaviors are very similar to non-human primates. Think of grooming, of monkeys and apes, right? Maybe your hairdresser doesn't eat your lice, but
I hope not.
I don't want to speak for her, right? I know.
My life is mine.
Mine. Yeah, you gotta keep control of that. But yeah, so I mean, these behaviors are not so different from our non-human primate brethren. Just this sort of need to be around each other, and those behaviors are the way you kind of form bonds, social bonds with one another. And those are very important. And sometimes there's strategies of forming these social bonds. And in some primates, there's a social hierarchy. So it's like, if I groom Sharon and Sharon's alpha female and I keep grooming her, I'm going to be in good favor with her. So she's going to make sure I don't get beat up by Jenny and
totally
Brenda over there. Right.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of my life I've actually spent single, and I used to, when I could afford it, I would get a massage as often as possible because I just was so lonesome for touch. And it seems like that is part of my loneliness. I don't know if it's part of everyone's loneliness, but like just being touched and touching. I'll go months without touching a human being.
Which is so, I do understand. And I've been so single, I think, big chunks of my adult life. And I've lived alone. Honestly, a majority of my adult life, I've lived alone. And as a writer, or even like, for instance, when I was writing my thesis, I mean, I would just sit on my couch for days on end, not leave the apartment, not talk to a single soul. So usually the first conversation I had with somebody, or even the first hug, was so awkward. I remember I'd see a neighbor and they'd be like, "Hey, how are you doing?" I'm like, "Hi, I'm fine." I just didn't know how to be. I didn't know how to interact. And one of the things is, we also learn behavior from one another. So if you're not socialized, for instance, like I think a lot of parents even now with their kids are nervous about their kids who aren't playing with other kids or having other interactions with people. This is like some of these children, it's like they're at the ages where this is the time to become socialized. And if you don't learn these behaviors, it's going to be tough. The learning curve is going to be, a little bit harder to adjust. But as far as going all these months and times, I mean, I think a massage, getting your hair done, like even like just someone touching you, your nails. I mean, there is an interaction, a conversation to be had.
With monkeys, how important is touch? Are they often touching each other? Or
yeah, it depends on the primates, but I mean, and individuals will also vary, but yeah, I mean, they are very, very tactile. They're touching one another, they're bumping into each other, they're rubbing each other, they're hugging each other, they're grooming. I mean, I love spider monkeys will do this thing where they'll do like a hand clasp, like they'll go like this and they'll kind of groom each other's pits, and yeah, I mean, and also you have to remember a lot of them might live in areas where they have to huddle together at night because it's cold. There's a lot going on when you're touching somebody. I mean, there's oxytocin. You're getting that. Oxytocin is the, basically the cuddle, hormone that you get, that like basically the cuddle chemical that you get when you touch or, spoon somebody. It's very important to us. And that's something that we're lacking when we don't get that touch.
It almost seems like the solitary lives we've created as humans, living alone, working home at your, desk alone, seems completely counter to being a primate. And we are really not so far away from evolution that we don't behave as primates. Our technology might be advanced.
Yep.
Our actual just core sense of being and behavior is primate behavior. And we seem to live so counterculture to what it asks for.
Humans are we're biological species. A lot of our biology will dictate certain parts of how we behave, but for the most part, culture dictates a huge part of how we interact with one another. Mm-hmm. And certain cultures have different ways of doing life. In some areas of the world, you don't move out of your parents' house until you get married.
Right.
You just don't, or you'll have multiple generations in one home. You don't see that as much here in the United States. You do see it in some places, but there's not this sort of appreciation of living in groups like you see in different parts of the world. So it really does vary. So I think the United States is so hard hit because you sound a lot like me, where it's like strong, independent women, doing our thing. I'm going to live alone, but then oh crap, it comes with the consequence of living alone.
Right, exactly.
And you're like,
yeah. And every time I would go work overseas in Africa or Central America, I was always in villages where there was beautiful village structure where many generations were helping each other. And there was much like epically more community. And I was like, oh, this is what I want. This is what I want. And this is exactly what I don't get in the States.
In the case of non-human primates, I'm just trying to think of, they oftentimes live in groups. And there's, one of the benefits I forgot to mention that I love in baboons, like baboon females will make friends with baboon males, like friends. And it also, that helps ensure that their infants will be taken care of, because it's sort of like building, like a village sort of raises a child.
Yeah. Oh, that's.
And I feel like in certain parts of the world that still holds weight and it's still true, but
yeah,
in the United States, it's rare.
What could we as United States citizens learn from primate behavior to ease our loneliness?
Well, I guess once this eases, because unfortunately with COVID-19, I don't want to urge people to go out there and get someone's nana sick because you want a haircut, but, but after this, to the introverts of the world, it is good to get out there and say yes, maybe to a few more things. And, touch is important. Some people though don't And that's why I have to be thoughtful, because there's some people who really don't like touch, like now I ask people if they want to hug, because I'm a big hugger.
Yeah.
I've worked on shoots recently where I've asked people like, hey, can I hug you? And they've said no. And I'm like, cool. Because I'm not going to be that person that.
Yeah. We don't know what someone carries or trauma or background, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And as somebody, sometimes if I'm talented, there's also like this weird pressure that they don't want to, and that's not cool. That's really, I want to make sure that I'm not, pressuring that feels icky. But yeah, I think moving forward, just investing some time in being more social, but also I think there's, different levels of quality in social behavior too. You know what I mean? Like I'm not encouraging you to go to the bar and get, blackout drunk with your friends, but maybe just try to get out there and be a little bit more social and check in with each other too. I think that's another thing that it's hard though. I do understand if somebody suffers from depression or anxiety based on their loneliness, they're not going to be the one to reach out. So if you're feeling okay and it is in a good place, maybe you be the one reaching out to those that you haven't heard from in a while. So I think checking in on one another is a really important idea to just, make sure everyone is doing okay, try to think of it more of a, we're all connected, because we all are connected. We all really are. And I hope, again, I don't know how travel is going to look in the future, but I hope people can get out there and go to places in the world to maybe see how different social groups work in humans, like that's something, and not everybody has the means to do that, but I think it's important to even in the continental United States, get out there and just see how different people socialize.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I think that,
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you talking with me about
of course
being a primatologist and the primate structure and loneliness, because it is obviously on my mind. So bringing this podcast out to people.
How are you dealing with it right now? If you don't mind me asking you a question.
Sure. Sorry, we can keep going. So I am a person who was very lonely before COVID. It was not new to me. And spent a lot of time alone before COVID. I live alone. I often work in my house alone. But I'm a person who's involved in a lot of activities. I stand up paddleboard with a group of people. I do improv, I tango dance. Like I get very involved, and yet I still have a lot of loneliness. So how I deal with it is trying to learn more about it and when and why I'm lonely. And I often now just accept the loneliness and invite it in and say, hello, I see you. This is part of life. Okay. Maybe try and figure out why it's showing up. Maybe not, but just kind of allow it to happen. Mm-hmm. And if I allow it to happen, it just kind of flows through.
No, that's a great way of I feel like I don't know, growing up, when you break up with someone, or I would always try to jump into something new, try to, kind of just bury the pain. And now I sort of embrace the suck and like wallow in it to allow myself to go through it, feel it, let it pass, and then move on. But that's really great.
Yeah. And I make sure to have Zoom chats with people. I make sure to go on distanced walks with people. It's really important. It's hard. It's not easy, but kind of, and then at home, I'll put music on, or I'll put a movie on and hear the chitter chatter in the background.
That does help. I feel like, putting on like an old favorite movie, sometimes, throw Ghostbusters on and I'm like, oh, comfort.
You don't have to pay attention. It's a comfortable childhood memory and it's just there.
Oh, and I forgot to mention one thing. I have all these notes, but I just wanted to say that there is a theory that encephalization, the increased brain size in humans over time, because our ancestors, even our upright walking ancestors, that we share a common ancestor with, chimps, and basically we went this way and chimps went that way, but our upright walking ancestors had pretty small brains. And so one of the theories of why our brains got bigger was this increased sociality, this need for, it was basically social intelligence hypothesis, that as we had to become more social. And one of the things that we also do is communicate. I've forgot to mention that non-human primates will communicate in vocalizations, and even have, when it comes to predator avoidance, they'll even have calls that are predator specific,
right?
That, communicate these things. And so humans have had to do the same. So there's a reason why, possibly being more social helped our brains get a little bit beefier over time. And now we're just super dependent on being social.
Right.
So
it makes sense. I mean, I think that'll be helpful for me when I do feel lonely, when I'm in my house alone, having been working all day alone, and loneliness shows up. It's not going to be this freakish thing to me going, why am I lonely? What's going on? It's like, I'm a primate and
they're normal.
Interview with people and I'm an extrovert. This is normal.
Yeah. No, and that's important. You're not alone, even when you're alone and feeling alone.
Yeah, I love
because it is tough. Yeah, I definitely understand, and I send you hugs, virtual hugs. I know.
I love that. You can pick the little like fleas and lice off your hair.
Yeah, and also I'm sure you've kind of touched on it. Even the Zoom calls, there's even ideas that the Zoom is not as it's not scratching that itch. It's scratching the itch, but not all the way. And also they're looking at how Zoom calls can even be more exhausting sometimes, like Zoom meetings, because like when you go to a meeting, you kind of just like you're there and you're having to be attentive, but here you have to know exactly where to look and this and that, and you can't really doze off completely. You know what I mean? Whereas, and also you get the added bonus of being like, hey, Sharon, I haven't seen you in a while. How's everything with, you and blah, blah. And what do how's the paddle boarding? And like, what's this? And, you don't get that with a Zoom meeting. It's kind of like, hi, and then bye.
Right.
And no hug or interaction. So again, we're seeing that even the supplemental hangouts are not enough sometimes.
Yeah.
So got to go easy on ourselves.
My nervous system really wants to be around other nervous systems. And I know there are all those studies about nervous systems linking up when you're in group.
Yeah.
And I think it does just inherently want that feeling.
Yeah. No, that is, you're not alone.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's good to know.
Yeah, I know. It's true.
When you're lonely, you're not alone.
Right. Exactly. It's, I'm hoping we're coming out of this. I mean, it's going to be some time. It's going to change the way we do things too. Our touch might be a little bit different, but yeah, I mean, handshakes and that's okay. Handshakes were always awkward anyways. I was never good at the handshake. I always felt like, and the hug and so
let me just check in. Do you have any other fabulous notes that you aside?
Let me see. Oh, let's see. I got vocalizations. I also had, I talked about play, grooming and play being a huge part, but also a fun fact that non-human primates will do, I call it, it's like primate babysitting, but it's called alloparenting, where basically primates, a younger, female or male primate will borrow the infant of an older, female and just sort of like play mom, which is essentially babysitting. And that's kind of how they learn how to be parents, but also it takes the weight off of mom. There's also a grandmother hypothesis because a lot of, human women obviously go through menopause and act as grandmothers that help raise their children's kids, and that's unique to humans. And that is something that we think that, allows grandmas to be relevant, up until, the end of their life. And so there's certain ways that we have sort of social behavior just sort of ingrained in us. And it's different culturally,
right?
Even touching culturally is different. There's some cultures that very hands-on and tactile. Some it's a little bit very specific to who can touch who and when and all that kind of stuff. But it exists.
I mean, for me, with the child thoughts that you had, as a 40-year-old woman, I am missing the fact that I don't have kids. And I do enjoy getting the ability to, touch and play with someone else's baby or kid, because that is a part of my loneliness, is not having offspring to play with.
Now you're going to make me cry. I'm the same age. I'm like, no. It's fine. Well, no. It's, that is actually, I turned 41 on March 13th. And basically that was the day quarantine was like, that's when we started here. And I just was like, well, crap, looks like that's still put on hold, but yeah, it's tough. There's moments where it's funny. I have friends who gave birth during this time,
Mm.
and their loneliness is just epic, like mom can't visit, they can't see all their friends, they can't do all the normal things that a new mom can. And then of course I have friends that have kids that are like, I am so envious of you. You know what I mean? They're like, you have no children.
Yes.
And then, I feel like it would be really great.
Yeah.
I thought, and also, makes you call into question like all my life choices, like how did
Sure.
like why maybe I shouldn't have focused on my career. Maybe I should have just had kids with that guy, even though you didn't really like that guy, but
Right.
and then at the end of the day, it's like, well, it is what it is. So, but borrowing people's kids has been
all
an
right.
epic
I will make sure to ask permission and then borrow someone's child.
Yes. Make sure consent is given.
Yeah.
DC woman.
I know, right?
Yeah, but there's something to be said for, the grass is always greener, but at the same time, I understand missing that sort of that itch not being scratched, and like, oh, it'd be nice to have a little person.
Yeah, so there are behaviors that we can learn from our primate cousins.
No, absolutely. I mean, whether it's, the importance of grooming and touch and play is something that we all do. And it's not just primates. I mean, if you look at multiple animal species involved have certain levels of play, and that kind of teaches them how to just be that type of species, like if you hit somebody too hard, your mom's going to come over and they're going to go, no, you can't play like that. That's not the kind of gentle touch or gentle this or that. You learn how to kind of be a primate during play as a child. A good friend of mine, that's one of her focuses of study, is play among juvenile primates, and it's incredibly important. But yeah, I mean, forming these social bonds is something that brings us a lot of joy, and also can be beneficial. Like I said, it can be beneficial for if you need something down the line, like if whether it's a cup of sugar or like, hey, I need a referral to a doctor, or I'm my house is being broken into, can you help? Having these sort of social bonds and these connections can be very
absolutely. Cool. Well, seriously, I thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Love hearing about primates, non-human primates and human primates.
Do you have a favorite one?
Well, I filmed lemurs a lot, and I was the first person to get to film a silky sifaka lemur in Madagascar.
No way!
So, yeah, I made the first film about them ever.
That is amazing.
Thanks to Eric Patel and his research. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So that would probably be my favorite because it marked the beginning of my career.
That's wonderful. I'm jealous. I actually, in February, friends and I were trying to plan a trip. We were going to go to Mozambique, South Africa, and Madagascar.
Oh, wow.
And then, I got a teaching position, so we had to push it to the summer, but that's been inevitably pushed. So I can only imagine the joy of going to Madagascar and seeing. Oh, I'm so excited for you. That's great.
Thank you. Well, all right. If you have any, I'm going to put your bio below.
Yeah.
Links you might have below so that people can learn more about you and your work.
Cool.
And I just want to thank you for chatting.
Oh, thank you. And loneliness.
Right? Woo!
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Sharon.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Loneliness. I'm your host, Sharon Pieczenik. And if you have any questions or comments, please email me at fckloneliness@gmail.com. I look forward to having you with me at the next episode.